Welcome to the new IT. The new IT, we're talking about IT and new stuff. The new IT. What are we talking about today, Brad? What's going on today?
Today we're going to talk about the four no's of IT.
The four no's.
Four no's.
Like nose? No, the four no.
One,
Don't
two, three,
do,
four.
1, 2,
Four
3,
no's.
4. Don't do that. The no.
Yep.
Like N-O. No.
And the four no's are what decisions your IT staff shouldn't be making. So as a business owner or as a manager, these are four things that you should be making sure that you handle on your own.
Yes, and we're gonna hit these four one at a time, and then we're gonna talk about them and why not, if
Right.
we feel differently. These are things that where did these come from? Do you know where these came from? These just we pulled them out of our rear end, or
Well, I mean, I think these are good questions that every IT manager should be asking themselves and making sure that as a manager they should be covering for their department.
and they should. These really are powerful things that the IT department should not make the decision on. This is the whole key of what we're talking about today.
Correct.
Is that this needs to come from a business level, not a technology level.
Correct.
This needs to come from, and I know I harp on executive steering committee all the time. That is where this stuff shines.
Absolutely.
Is where the whole company should be making these decisions. When we talk about departments, but wait, I got ahead of myself.
No,
I
you're
thought
fine.
we were already talking about.
I mean, let's dive in. I mean, let's do it. I mean, let's dive in.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one, they
Yeah.
should not make their own budget.
No, they should never make their own budget. I mean, I think if you're making your own budget, you're free to make it as large as you want. So who's to say what is really needed and what's not?
But nobody else knows what technology is except the technology department. So how could
Exactly.
anybody else make it the budget besides the IT manager?
Again, I'm going to take a page out of your book and say this is where the joy of a steering committee comes in, because if you have total buy-in, or if your VP or your CIO is doing the right things, they're looking at this and saying, okay, how do I maximize the best out of my budget?
I think in my history in the corporate world and stuff, that there is a reason that usually IT is under the CFO.
Why?
Because the CFO, if it's a good CFO or a controller, they don't like to spend money.
Oh, okay.
IT loves to spend money. I've always said if I ask a CFO for something and they just go, sure, yeah, let's get it, that's a bad CEO. I'm a CFO. I mean, they usually are like, so what do we need that for? Can you explain to me why it needs to be this much? Can we get it for a little bit less? Can we do this instead? That's who you want as a controller or a CFO. You want that person that's asking questions, because as an IT person, I should have to justify what I'm buying. I should have to justify the technology that I'm getting and why I'm getting it. And IT is known for kind of putting the wool over people's eyes because they don't know what you're talking about. We need this, man. We need this.
I want to dive into that a little bit deeper, and maybe this is something for another episode. But I may be in the blind, but I've never known IT to do that. But I could be wrong.
Never known IT to do what?
To pull
the wool over your eyes,
Yeah,
trying to. Well, and I maybe even at a simpler, because most of the time when you're doing it, the other people have no clue. Just so you know, I'm just telling you, in IT,
Okay.
we will start to pull crap out of our butt that sounds really interesting and sounds like it's something important, but really we're just kind of throwing stuff at the person because they don't know.
Literally, so when you start to go technical on
Yeah,
that,
it's like, well, it's blah, 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 this. And, well, the flux capacitor has you've got to buy, they're really expensive, and it's because they've got the RAM that connects to this miniature hard drive that's really, really important for the core of the quantum physics of it really makes it, and that's why it's $100,000.
Bobby, you've already lost me.
Yeah. I could just tell you we need it, really, sir. We just need it for it to work.
Fair enough. That works. And to that point, this is exactly why IT cannot set their own budget.
They should not. They absolutely should not use it. And they should have to justify to others what they want and why they want it. And I'll have a lot of pushback from IT for this, but they should not be making their budget. Now the flip side of this, the interesting thing of this is most most divisions of a company do make their own budget.
Really?
Yeah, sales budgeting, operation budgets, they usually they'll put out their budget and somebody will say yes or no to it, right?
Of course.
Now, why would IT be different?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I believe it's because IT, again, I know we hammer this a lot, it is its own silo. It's its own little world. It is not usually the company. Unless the company is IT, then it's doing technology that is not a part of the business model for the company. Do you understand where I'm going with this?
I do.
All of the people in sales, marketing, and operations, they're all on the same path for the business model, for taking care of that business. IT is for making technology that helps all those other people do that stuff.
Got it.
You see where I'm going with this?
I do.
It is completely separate. So that's, again, why I'm talking about buy-in from all of these other departments that should have say in the budget for IT. And IT should have to justify. Now, that's not to say that IT can't have a budget, but it should not be in charge of that budget. Does that even make sense?
No, that does. Let me ask you this then. I mean, I mean, obviously it just depends on the size of the company, but what is a good amount of budget for an IT company?
See, this is the problem.
Or for any company.
It's an arbitrary, crazy number. There's no such thing. Because there are so many different pieces and parts to the IT department, you just don't know.
It's hard to say.
It is hard to say, and especially in the new IT, with all of everything going to cloud and no more prem stuff, or less prem stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, when we look at budgets, the beautiful thing of technology, it used to be, oh guys, we've had our servers for 4 years now, they're gonna die. It's time to start thinking about renewing or redoing. And yeah, it's going to cost us about $100,000 to replace everything.
Got it.
Now, business goes, oh crap, can we last just 1 more year? Can we go just 2 more years? Well, now we're just paying a cloud service.
So you don't even have to worry about that.
The budget
anymore.
is, it's the $3,000 a month, and it's out of sight, out of mind. Nobody has to worry about upgrades or that surprise shot in the IT. IT is always known for surprises. You're always it's throwing because something fails, and nobody gives a crap until you can't do your job. Yeah, until stuff is broken, then they care, and it's all your fault.
Got it. That makes sense.
That's why I say there needs to be buy-in of the whole company for the IT department. The whole executive group has to have buy-in so they understand, hey, I've been telling you, the IT manager, I've been telling you guys for 4 months, this really needs to happen. And now that it's failed, it's not my fault.
Yep. I got you. So, I mean, would a good rule of thumb be for companies to say, like, set aside like X amount of revenue towards IT? I mean, is that even a viable option?
Yeah, it's not, because and the reason it's not is because every company's technology needs are completely different. There is no like we talk in marketing, a lot of times they'll say put 40% of revenue into marketing, and that'll pay you back, right?
Yeah.
Well, with technology, you may need 60% of stuff to implement this new thing. You just don't know. You don't know how much you're getting. So arbitrarily to say, well, we need to put $100,000 aside for IT. You could do that and say that, but there's going to be surprises.
Okay.
I think the most thing you can do is IT can sit down and say, we use this technology, this is upgrades, we're paying this much for licensing, the licensing will be renewed in 3 years, and you can kind of understand what the budget is from that.
Okay.
But to do new stuff and things like that, or to have new ideas come up, it's all over the place. There's no way you could say, this is how much you should put in IT. It just doesn't work.
No, that makes
At
sense.
least in my experience.
Well, and I get that, and I see where you're going with that, but I think, I would assume that you would be able to have some sort of like metric from year over year, so you could base it off of that and say,
yes.
Okay, then maybe allocate a little bit more for new things and things like that.
Yep. That's how I would say to do it.
Okay.
Because every year you should have this how much money you've spent on this, that, or the other.
Exactly. Well, and that's kind of what I was getting at. So,
but to say, well, we should put $100,000 away for things that might come up or something new to do. That's so random with technology. You just don't. You could do that, but then what I've found is you try and go find a way to spend that money that maybe you don't need.
Right.
Which is not. If you say, well, we're going to spend this much on marketing and we're going to do this big marketing push, that makes sense. But hey, we're going to buy this new technology because we have some money in the budget. Let's just buy it.
That's rare.
Yeah.
That's like non-existent, I would assume.
Yeah. Well, it should be.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. That's number one.
Yeah, that's number one. So number two on our list of 4 things that decisions that your IT staff shouldn't make is which processes are needed. Which
is interesting because this kind of has the same flow, doesn't it, as the first question.
It does.
Don't be in charge. Don't let them be in charge of the budget. Now, don't let them be in charge of the processes needed.
Why? Why should you not let your IT manager or your IT team be in charge of the processes? Don't they know what their processes should be?
Well, it's been my experience, unfortunately, that IT is smarter than every other human on the planet. Or at least they think they are. Unfortunately, they think that they know absolutely what is the most important thing. And anything to do with their job and IT specifically, they're going to do the absolute most that they possibly can. And from a business standpoint, that may not be the best.
Okay. I
Does
see
that
what you're
make
saying.
sense?
Yeah, no.
Because if I'm in charge of a process, right, and I'm supposed to, then it's going to be the number one thing, right? And I'm gonna give it everything I can to make. Now that may or may not be the best thing for the business,
right?
Because again, the problem with IT is it's a silo of its own, and I don't think that's the right word. I harp on this.
There you go.
Because it's why, because other companies, they should be in charge of their processes. The operations should understand its processes, right? But IT needs buy-in from everybody else because they'll go crazy and they'll bog down the company by trying to make that process perfect.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So would you ask them to maybe have other IT members kind of collaborate on what the processes should be? Or, are you talking about having again, a steering committee or something like that oversee what their processes are?
Here's the way it should happen in a well-run company. So IT gets together and they do figure out processes. And so I was in a corporate company and I was in with we had a new IT director. And he said, hey, he comes up on and he says, okay, what are the processes that you guys are working on? And we listed this giant thing. And we went, oh yeah, we're doing this, and we're doing this. And what are projects? What are these projects? And we're doing this, and we're doing this, and we're doing this. And all of a sudden, he's like, okay, how long does this one take? How long does this one take? How long does this one take? When we got done, we were like 2 years in on those processes, on those projects.
Wow.
And it's like we're all looking at it going, what? we can't do all this stuff. And we were in charge of it.
Yeah.
And this is what we needed to do. The second a steering committee was created, and we showed that to the executive team of the company, and they realized, oh, this is a giant bottleneck that's crap. And we went through, and they decided what was important. This needs to be done first because it aligns with what we're doing in the business. We cut half of the things out that actually didn't help the company. But that's because IT was in charge of those processes. Well, once somebody else looked at what was really important for the company, it made our job load half.
Okay.
And two, it was what was important for the company, not what was best for IT.
Exactly. Well,
or what we thought was.
Yeah. What I was going to that point too is I would think that because you're not having IT in charge of the processes, you have more buy-in from other departments to say, oh, well, IT is overwhelmed. We need to start thinking about hiring 1 or 2 or 3 more people. So it's going to help you from that vantage point as well.
Absolutely. It did. When they, in that situation, when they looked and saw, holy crap, the team that you have can't, you've got a team of 10, they cannot do all of this stuff. And yes, it did help. And again, it was just because we were IT. IT is worker bees. We're just going to make it work, right?
Okay. That makes sense.
And that's not always best for the business if you don't have somebody guiding that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you need a captain at the helm, so to speak. So you always need to make sure that whoever is in charge is making sure that they're leading that charge.
And if you're in a company where the executives go, well, IT, that's IT stuff. Let IT take care of it. Oh, that's a bad place to be.
I agree.
What's the third one?
Third one is expectations of quality.
Ooh.
So I know we started kind of touching a little bit on this, but yeah, I mean, I want to do more of a deeper dive. So what, in terms of quality, I mean, you're going to lose me right from the get-go because I'm not an IT guy, and you're going to start, getting that glazed eyes look for me. I'm going to trust you enough. So how do I know if what you're actually doing for me is quality work?
So the big deal with IT is we feel it's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to quality, we want the best thing we can possibly get. And all of these are completely in line with each other. They touch each other. That's the reason we shouldn't be in charge of the budget, because we are going to try and get the latest, greatest, best thing we possibly can, because we want the best quality, because everything is IT's fault. So do we want things to fail?
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Do we need the latest and greatest and the best for the company to run well?
Personally, in my opinion, no.
Usually, it's completely unnecessary to spend $100,000 on something when you can get something really good for $10,000.
Really?
Yeah, but we're not gonna. IT sees it as it. We've been drilled that if something goes wrong, it's our fault.
Okay.
So if we're in charge of quality, we are going to buy the absolute best thing, and we're going to find out 3 different ways that it could fail, and we're going to buy 3 different things to make sure that thing is protected so it will not go down. Because if it goes down, it's our fault. And this is great because it's setting us up with a 4th one. This is all setting us up for the fourth question.
I see where you're going with it.
Yeah, because it's the big one. It all comes down to, and we all know if technology fails in a company, it's IT's fault, period. No matter what happened, why it happened, it's IT's fault. They didn't do something right. That department, you know how many times I've been threatened to be fired? Because I was just in proximity of the technology that failed. Well, you're the IT people. How could you let this happen? Technology is a crazy thing.
I gotcha. So let me ask you this, though. I mean, you were talking about disparities between like a $10,000 product and a $100,000 product. Is there really that much like difference between the 2 products, or help me understand that side?
I just got through talking with a developer person that has a company, and he just, and I'm not going to say who this is or whatever, but he was just telling me that we have big clients. He said we have big clients that pay us over $100,000 a year for our product, and we have these small clients that pay us about $15,000 a year. And maybe this is why it was in my brain. And he goes, Guess what? Those two products are the same.
Really?
He told me that.
Wow.
He said, but because it's a big, and yeah, we have more support for them and we're there for them more, but the products themselves, the development is pretty much identical.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and you will not believe how much that is the case.
Wow.
You will charge what people will pay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. I mean, everybody, like, I'm not an IT guy, so I'm just saying, okay, well, this is standard rate. I get a couple bids, and then that's it. And then I just go with the cheapest.
I remember backup systems. I could buy a $3,000 backup system, or we could buy a $60,000 backup system. They both back shit up.
Really? Good to know.
And somebody will argue and say, hey, yeah, the $60,000 one, though, man, it's the bizwax, and it will do every blah, blah, blah. The $3,000 one backs stuff up, dude. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, that's a better solution. Maybe it has bells and whistles. They both do the same thing.
Okay.
Now, if I was a business manager, a business person, and I was looking at those two, and I asked the hard questions, does this do what that one does? Which one am I going to buy?
Well, in that same thought process, you may not always need what the $60,000 thing can do. You don't need all of those bells and whistles.
I can't tell you how many times sales vendors would come up to me and goes, oh man, it does 400 different blah, blah, blah. It'll do this and it has this list. Look at this, blah, 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 blah. And I look at them and I'm like, dude, I needed to do 3 things. And I needed to always do those 3 things really good. I could care less about the other 397
so if you get
things.
them, it's nice, but it's not necessary.
It's not even, for me, most of the time, I could care less. I wanted those 3 things. And why am I spending thousands more dollars for stuff I'm not going to use?
Yeah, I agree.
Now, as an IT guy, I look at it, I'm like, wow, yeah, more bells and whistles, that's cool. As a business person, do we need those other things?
Personally, no.
And why would we buy them?
Exactly.
Yeah, so anyway,
I get you.
My 2 cents.
So last question, we're going to wrap it up with this. What security risks should be accepted? Why should IT not be in charge of that?
This is the big deal. Again,
Why?
Because we go back to it's IT's fault, and people, especially in history now of hacking, there's been a lot of different stuff like that. Lots of technology folks are fired.
Really?
In the past, I mean, they are flat out fired. When there's a breach of security, that is a big deal. It can put a company out of business. It literally can. So it's taken very seriously, and they'll fire technology people all the time. So, but they don't talk about when that technology person had yelled from the rooftops, "Hey, we have a problem here," and nobody gave a crap.
Really?
Yeah, they don't talk about that. They just for the look on the outside for social media and everything. Hey, we took care of the problem. The person that was responsible for the breach, because they were inept and stupid and wrong, we took care of them. We fired them.
Okay.
Not saying anything about that person for 6 months had said, you know what, we have kind of a problem here that we should fix, because nobody cares until there's a breach.
Well, yeah, and that's what gets me. I mean, I may be in the minority here, but I'm sitting here saying, I'm looking at it and just pretend I'm just a regular business owner. I look at it and I say, well, I'm paying somebody, or I have my IT team
for their expertise.
Why is it not their fault if it failed? Help me understand that. Like, walk me through why.
Because they won't listen. Because I won't listen to you as an IT person, and I say,
yeah,
this is vulnerabilities. Well, what are the chances of this getting breached? Well, I don't know. You just don't know from time to time. It could be never. There's a small chance. And if you tell the business owner, well, there's like a 3% chance that breach will happen. What does the business owner say? 3%. Dude, that's a great gamble. I'll gamble that all day until the next day that breach happens and they win the lottery. Well, then whose fault is it?
Gotcha.
It's the IT guy's fault, even though, And that's why this has become a huge deal in the IT world. The buy-off has to, this buy-off, it has to happen at the business level because it's a protection for the IT people.
So who, if IT is not in charge of this, who would you expect to?
They are
to
in
make
charge
those
of the
policies?
security.
Yes.
They're not in charge of the expectation of the oh crap, what's the word I'm looking for?
The security risks.
Yeah, of the vulnerability.
Vulnerabilities.
Of what's the chances of it happening. So
Okay.
so what the IT's responsibility is to say, okay, here, because the more you lock your company down, the harder it is to do work.
Of course.
Unfortunately,
That's just the way it goes.
That is the way it goes. So there is a give and take. The business owner has to go, okay, I know if we do this, if we implement this security thing, it's going to cause this and this and this, and there's going to be some problems. There's going to be more interaction with IT because more people will have problems with it. But it will close down this much. The business has to be in charge of how much risk they'll take.
Okay.
Because if they don't, then they're not going to care, and they'll just keep firing the IT people and say it's their fault.
So do you leave that up to like just the business owner? Do you leave it up to the chair people? Who would you put in charge in terms of that, or how would you assemble a team?
We talk about the executive steering committee all the time, which is good, but truthfully, inevitably, I would say it's CEO level. They're the ones that should mark off this is the risk, and they should be held accountable for it.
Gotcha.
And now, are they not very? I do
rare.
believe though that this is a part of the new IT. This is becoming the standard because breaches are so prevalent, and IT people know about the breaches. They'll do security audits, and this audit will show all these different breaches, but the company doesn't care. They did the audit because that was a part of the thing that they needed to do.
Yeah.
But they could care less about actually doing, because that's going to cost a lot of money to fix some of those holes.
So they're just going through the motions.
Nobody cares until a breach happens and their company is in trouble and they have to have a scapegoat. It's the IT guy.
Got it. Okay, that makes a little more sense.
It's an interesting world. Breaches are going to happen no matter what. Mm-hmm. When you've got technology and you've got connectivity like we do now, it's inevitable.
It is.
Now you can crack down more and more and more and put it really tight, but you're still working with human beings, and human beings mess up.
Exactly.
They just do. Should you fire somebody for messing up? My philosophy is that guy will sure be pretty ready to go next time. You know what I mean? They've learned something. Why fire somebody that learned something great as long as it didn't kill your company?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, that's got to be the caveat. As long as they're not a big loss, then
yeah. Well, cool. Wow, I think this was really good. This got a lot of crap off my chest.
I can tell, and it was a good episode for me because it gave me a little bit more insights.
Yeah, I think we go back and forth about, and I can't help it, IT is a silo. It is not the company. So you have to look at it differently from a business model, from a business mindset.
It makes sense, and I agree.
Yeah, and you got to hold them
accountable.
You hold them accountable in a different way than you would sales, marketing, operations. It's a different problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think their metrics are a little bit different way to measure. So it can't be done in just, well, you didn't hit your numbers or things.
It's it's impossible to do IT that way. So anyway, I think this has been a great episode. I hope people have learned something, and hopefully the IT gives you some hope out there that you're not blamed for everything, even though you will be.
Right.
All right, folks. We will see you next time for the new IT.